Okay, welcome to this new session about Smith. In this session, we're going to cover the LLM prompt component and some common issues and some tips about this component. So let's drag and drop a component here, and we're going to see, well, the basic and advanced settings of this component. First, we have the model. This list is going to be updated according to the API keys added in the vault. Here we have the vault. So if we have an API key add about, I don't know, Google, Together AI, Cloud, well, this list of models is going to be updated and you're going to find the models available. Then we have the prompt. This is really easy to use. It's just the prompt that is going to be used to generate the new content. And we have the ability to use input variables and agent variables. For example, these blue ones are the input variables and these purple ones are the agent variables. In this case, we only have one input called input, and that's why we have only one in blue color. But if we just add a new one, we're gonna have the ability to use it right away in the prompt. And well, this can help us to make the prompts dynamic because we can inject these variables in any place of the prompt. Okay, and about agent variables, well, we can define it in this section. The advantage that we have with agent variables is that we can use agent variables in all of our components. Then we have the advanced settings. Well, we're just gonna cover the one that is the most important one, that is the maximum output tokens. By default, we have this value. So no matter the model that is selected in here, we are gonna have that value set. So these settings is the most important one because well, most of the time you're gonna have to change this value because this value can be too low if you want, I don't know, generate an article, generate a long text. So in that case, if you see that your generated content is not the expected uh, the expected long, well, you have to be aware and check the advanced settings and see if this number is the proper one. And well, the maximum of these tokens, well, it's going to change according to the selected model. For example, in this grok, we have this value, but if we change it to this GPT model, we're going to have another maximum output tokens value. So yeah, be aware of this setting. Then, well, regarding to the maximum output tokens, we have a common issue that you can face. That is, well, when you first create your account in SmithOS, you're gonna have available some OpenAI models, but these are not gonna. These models are limited, so they they have a limit in the max output tokens. We can check it right now. I'm gonna remove this OpenAI key, and if I return to this, if I check here, we can see that This is the limitation. This number is the maximum output tokens when I don't have uh, an OpenAI key set in my account. And if I am gonna use this component with that limitation, well, in some cases when I want to use or process a long text, well, we're gonna face an issue. And well, we have this component set for that scenario. I have an input and I have set a default value, and in this case, I'm using an agent variable that is called long prompt. That is just a long text. And we're gonna see how it behaves with that limitation. We're gonna see that the execution failed. We can check the logs. In the logs, we're gonna have information like the model that was used for the execution and the prompt. In this case, the prompt is too long, so in that kind of cases, we can download the logs. But in this case, we are just interested on the error. So in SmithOS, we have like a common output that we can create in our components to just get the error message. And that output is this one. This error output is not gonna be fine by default. For example, in this new LLM prompt component one that we just used a few moments ago, we don't have that error output. But if we just create in that format, well, SmithOS is gonna place the error message in this output if there's some error in the execution. So this is really useful to debug our agents. So let's go back here and let's see what was the error message that we found when we execute this long text. And as you can see, the error message is about the maximum output tokens. And well, it says also that we have to add our own API key to unlock the full length. Okay, well, that's a really common issue that you can face. Well, we just saw a bit about input and agent variables and input variables. So let's see another example about how to use it, and also a model or an option that we don't see about the LLM prompt. For that, we're going to use this example. And the scenario is the following. We just want to scrape Google News given a query before date and after date. And for that, well, we need to build a specific query because, well, Google has some specific structure in the query that you have to pass, like to set this kind of specific search. For example, in this case, if we want to retrieve uh, Google News in a specific range of dates, we need to pass to Google in this format, like the query before semicolon, before date, after semicolon, after date. So as you can notice here, we are using input variables. And input variables are injected directly in here. So any kind of query before date and after date that we pass to this component, these values are going to be replaced and injected in the prompt. Another uh, different thing that we don't that we didn't see earlier is that we are using the echo option. Now you have to know that this echo option is not a model. It's not gonna generate new content. So this echo just outputs whatever is said in the prompt, and that's what we need right now, because we need to pass to Google a specific query, a specific query search, and it needs to have this format. So let's try it. Let's just run it. We are gonna use, and we're gonna see another trick once we execute this workflow. So for example, scrape news about global warming of today. So we can see that first this another endpoint was executed. And well, as you know, the models don't know what's the current date. So if we pass prompts like with a relative time, like today, yesterday, last week, 1 week ago, well, the model is not going to be able to know what is the current date, what date we are referring. So for that, well, a trick is just to create this really uh, simple endpoint that it didn't receive any value. The only thing that it generates is the current date that you can retrieve it. In this case, I'm just using this JavaScript code to retrieve the date, but you can do it with other options, like, I don't know, maybe an API that retrieve the current date, and well, there are many options. But yeah, this is an interesting trick, like to make it to make your agent more human. Like you can pass prompts like this, like without saying specific dates, and it makes the interaction with the agent more easy. Okay, so let's run it. So right now we have the current date. The agent now can calculate the range of dates. So what we have here in the LLM prompt component is the query and the range of dates. So after executing this, we have the expected query that we need, well, that Google needs to scrape news. So, well, this is an example about echo model and how to use input variables. Okay, we see the echo option and how to use input variables. Now let's go back here and let's see another feature, another important feature. So if we we have in the LLM prompt component the ability to create extra outputs, but well, we have the default one that is called reply. So why we need extra outputs if we are just generating content? Well, let's see an example. Let's create just this LLM prompt component, and we're gonna use the same prompt than this other one. But well, in this case, we're using this prompt agent variable. We're going to set the same. So we have two components that has the same input and well the same prompt, but this one has these extra outputs and this doesn't have any. So what happens if I run this component? Well, it creates a summary of the input because that's what we set in the prompt. Just summarize the input text. So what we have here is just a summary of the prompt. That well, in this case, it's just information about a person that's called Albert with an email and a phone number. So what's the advantage of creating new outputs? In this case, you see that we have a JSON format in our output. By default, SmithOS handles JSON format for it's the structure that SmithOS use. And in this case, we just have a key that's called summary, and in the value, well, the summary of the input. But what if I need I don't know I want to isolate information from this generated content. For example, I want the name, the email, and the phone number isolated in another output. Well, in that case, we can create extra outputs with that name. For example, in here we just have a new output that was called name, email, and phone number. So just by doing this, the model is gonna try to map the generated content according to the outputs that we have here. So if we run the same input, but now having these extra outputs, we're gonna see that, well, the reply is gonna have this structure with the keys name, email, phone number. And in the these extra outputs, we have the isolated values of that generated content. So this is really useful when I don't know, we are generating content and we need to isolate some values of that generated content to pass it to other components. And another advantage is that we can be sure that the component is going to try to keep these keys with the same name as the output. So we have like consistency in the naming, or well, or we can be sure that the structure is going to follow the name that we set in the extra outputs. Okay, well, let's go through another tip. In this case, it's going to be about the prompt. So if you check here, this is the default prompt that we found when we just start using an LLM prompt component. We have this summarize the input text, and below we are just doing like a declaration, like saying, well, input is going to be this value. Why we are like doing this instead of something that something like this. Summarize the input, and instead we inject directly the input variable. Why is different, and why this is not a really good practice? Well, let's check how the prompt looks when we run this. Okay, we check the log. And here is the prompt that the model is receiving after the input variable is replaced with the value that we passed. So we have summarized the and directly the value of the input is injected. Summarize the I am Albert and so on. So this text is what the model is receiving. And yes, the model can be um, able to understand and make the correct or the expected behavior. But in some cases, the model can be confused because this text doesn't make too much sense. It looks weird. So that's why it's better to handle the prompts in this way. It make it more clear. Let's run it again. And the prompt that the model is going to see is this: summarize the input text. And well, input is this. So this is more easy to understand for the model, and you can be sure that the expected behavior is going to be retrieved. So that's a good tip, especially when you have input variables that has long text or you have long prompts. So yeah, you need to make it really, really clear so you don't have weird behaviors. And that's it for this session. So yeah, feel free to use the Discord server to ask about any other scenario about your agent where you're using, I don't know, the LLM from component, some scenario that was not covered in this session. Thank you so much.